All right, fellas. So, look, I've been following this Chris Unbias case since the get go, and this is something that has been frustrating to all hell to follow. Um, Salute to Adept, salute to HB2N, salute to Battle Truth, salute to DME, Detroit, State Sales, everybody who has been involved in exposing this. But I just want to go through this and give you my own personal opinion. I am somebody who is closer to Chris's age. I was around the same time that these things happened, so I kind of have a memory. Plus, I spent 20 years of my life working with uh, violent psychiatric offenders, and my I have a master's in psychiatric rehabilitation. I used to work for 20 years in outreach. Eventually, it became working with violent offenders, mainly sexual offenders and people who have chronic mental illness and are sexual offenders, which I believe Chris fits perfectly. Now, I just want to go through this, which is a transcript of the state of Georgia versus Gunsby that happened on December 5th, 2017. I want you to understand this case has not come to an end yet. They continue to push back everything because they have the finances. His mother is very wealthy. Um, and they're able to push it back and push it back until eventually they hope that people will eventually give up. It's war of attrition. This sort of technique. It's just kind of wearing people down. But let me please continue because it's important. All right. So let me pop this up. Yeah. All right. So this is a transcript of the proceeds in J.P. Jolie Superior Court at DeKalb County in Georgia, December 5th, 2017. Okay. So, all right, now we're ready for the Gunsby case. That's in case you didn't know, Chris Unbias. Okay, so in general, I'm just going to give you a little breakdown here. Um, Mr. McClendon is going to be the person who is defending here, and Romanowski is the person who is supporting Unbiased. So McClendon is, I believe, fighting for the state here. All right. Normally, I would ask the victim does not need to be contacted. She does not know there's a bond hearing, obviously, since the calendar is out, et cetera, et cetera. I tried to highlight the important stuff here, so I'm just going to kind of start going into it. If you feel like you want to go through the whole thing, let me know. I can do that later, but I just really want to go through what I think is crucial and give you my assessment on this whole situation. Okay? Great. All right. So we're starting at Linda Grant. Okay? Witness Haven, being the first duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. The deputy. Can you state and spell your name? Linda Grant. Okay. Direct exam. Do you know Mr. Gunsby? Yes. How do you know him? He's my son. This is the mom. This is Gunsby's mom. So it's fair to say you know him all his life. Yeah, yeah, etc. This is what you would expect a mother to say. She is employed in Emory Healthcare. And how long has she been employed there? 30 years. She's actually on the board of Emory Healthcare, which is something that you'll find with the entire Gunsby family. They're all continuing to work under this umbrella of Emory Healthcare. Not to say that there's anything wrong with the hospital, but they are very kind of connected there, and she is on the board, and so that's how she is tied into Emory, which you'll find out comes out to be important later. So he's 40. He's going to be 43 tomorrow. Okay. He lived in Atlanta for 25 years. I'm just going to get into it. Okay. The mom says he was loved by his family, etc. All right. Whatever. This shit is not important. It's what you would expect a mother to say. Okay. Um, she doesn't believe he possesses danger to anybody. It's mom. All right. So let me keep going here. Direct examination. Okay. Now, the witness, Brenda Roberts. Okay. Good afternoon. Can you tell the court how you're employed? I'm retired. Uh, I retired from education at Emory. Worked there 15 years. Do you know Gunsby? Very well. He's my nephew. Okay, continuing on. Okay, so family here, working also at Emory. That's not exactly relevant for what we're doing right now, but I just want to cover that because it comes important later. Um, okay, so he's 42-year-old. He has 3 children. 2 stepchildren, 1 biological child, and he served in the Navy from 94 to 99. He was honorably discharged. I would love to find out how he was discharged. Okay. Um, so moving on here. This is basically some stuff, but now we get into his court. So we'd ask that the court, okay. He learned that he was not the case, that there was failure to appear to, okay. There was one time in the past where he says Gunsby was not able to appear in court, etc., and that blah blah blah. Mr. Gunsby, due to his good faith attempt to satisfy, this is his lawyer, Unbias's lawyer. He has he has a prior case of battery that was ultimately dismissed, and the allegation a middle school child that was much bigger than his child, was being aggressive towards his child in the garage. And so he kind of beat that child's ass because Chris likes to beat up kids, women, all kinds of shit. He's a sociopath. I'll get into that later. Okay, so that's just a little bit of his history before his very, very prominent role as a serial rapist. Okay. Notice I didn't say alleged. Okay, so no warrants at the time, blah, blah, blah. They let that go. He probably paid that person off, etc., etc. Okay. So his past is not ignoring a court's order. Respectfully ask that you give him a bond. Now, let me read a little bit. Now, briefly addressing the allegations at issue, like I knew that we would. We have 2 supposed individuals. They're definitely individuals, but that Mr. Gunsby has supposedly sexually assaulted. The first case, June 17th, 2017, Kiara. When you look at these cases, it becomes not a rape case. This is where Mr. Gunsby, on 2 different occasions, was having consensual sex with prostitutes, and then they were not paid. And because they were not paid, they take it upon themselves to be vindictive and swear out false warrants against Mr. Gunsby. Now, they're reframing this in a very, very way, in a very kind of a disgusting way, where they're saying that, look, he's not really raping them. These are people who agree to have sex for money. He merely didn't pay them. So it's more like theft. It's cat theft, pussy theft. However, we hear every day about consent. We hear about how people going to jail for rape because of suspect consent. Consent with a prostitute is money for sex. You avoid the money, you avoid consent. Because somebody is a prostitute does not mean that they are not required to the same safety as everybody else as citizens of the United States. He aims at this population because these are a population that not many people care about, not many people have much compassion for, and because they're already doing sex. So this is something that can be framed in a way, as you see his attorney disgustingly trying to do, making them less than human by calling them a prostitute, saying that no, he didn't actually rape her, which he did. The only thing is she's a prostitute, so he didn't pay her. So it wasn't really rape. However, the same exact behavior as rape happened. The consent isn't verbal or physical, it's based on money. It's a transactional type of consent. Okay, carrying on. At the preliminary hearing, we learned that the okay, wait, hold on. This is this is not a rape case. This is where Mr. Gunsby, on two different occasions, having consensual sex, and they were not paid. Okay, then vindictive. Of course, they're vindictive. Chris just had sex with them and didn't pay for them, so he raped both of them. Because everything is based consent based payment. Okay. Preliminary hearing, we learned that law enforcement confirmed Mr. Seaman was on Backpage. And if the court was not aware of Backpage, it's a website where typically meet to provide sex for money. Miss Seaman did not report to law enforcement. Of course, prostitutes often do not report rapes. They do not report crimes because they have to self-incriminate by saying what they're doing at the same time. That's why this is Chris's favorite population. Okay. Instead, what Miss Seaman says is that Mr. Gunsby his information was given to her by a friend. Some unknown friend as an individual who's an Uber driver from Craigslist. Those are the words of law enforcement. Doesn't exactly make sense. I guess some sort of cash for taxi. Now, let me tell you what this is, because I have worked with this population. I have a little bit more insight than most when it comes to the sort of stuff that happens here. Now, people are going to point out that Backlist was closed. Backpage was closed by then. Craigslist was closed, etc. Now, as somebody who worked with people who were prostitutes and were the street, I can tell you that yes, many of the classified sections were closed. However, people still had job wanted. There was still, a hiring thing. And what many people did, this was all over Backpage before, is that you can actually go now and look this up and you'll still find it. Drivers. What drivers and escorts do is they drive an escort from one outreach to another outreach to another outreach, and their position is to provide security, knock on the door after a certain amount of time to make sure that the prostitute is safe and to make sure that she's getting paid. Okay? It's transportation and it's also security at the same time. This is something I know. This is something I know people who have worked in. And this was both advertised on Craigslist as a driver. It's coded in a specific way as an escort driver. The escorts know what it is because of the specific codes like roses and so on like that go in there regarding payment. So Chris has obviously a lot of experience working as a John because he is now familiar with the concept of driving prostitutes instead of just getting prostitutes as a John. He realizes now that if he drives these women, he can also kind of scan the women and find his next victim based on whatever questions he asks. Close to your family, do you live with anybody, do you have a pimp? These sort of things that would be things that would rule out people that would not be smart to who knows. Okay, so let me continue on. So just so you know, my theory is he is a driver. It says clearly he is a driver. They do not understand that he is a driver specifically taking escorts from out call 1 to out call 2 to out call 3 to out call 4 and waiting outside for them, knocking at the door in a specific time. Okay? Okay, so continuing on. Now, that is just absolutely an lie. I don't even believe that anybody in law enforcement believes that. So she has clearly came out with the first thing that she tells law enforcement is a lie. And the first thing is, I think that's very important. First off, he doesn't know. So he's going to frame it as a lie. I also think it's important that, like we said, we had an opportunity to look into this. This is not the first time Seaman made a allegation, a felony against someone. She got a number from a friend as a cash taxi. This is how Seaman, who law enforcement concedes is on Backpage. Now, I understand, again, Backpage, Craigslist, ignore it all. Just look up Bedpage, Bedpage. Everything is going on right now as it was. Okay? Okay, so she gets back at people who do not pay as agreed. Now, that is a ridiculous statement because, let's face it, what is she going to say? Officer, he stole the money that he agreed to pay for me for prostitution. Give me a break. Okay. In this case, what happened was that Miss Seaman's money, and then unknown to Mr. Gunsby, a couple's belongings, such as a cell phone. And this is Gunsby's or Unbias's attorney, such as a cell phone, was left in his vehicle. Miss Seaman was trying to get back into that vehicle to get her property and to get that money that they agreed on. She was tripped at some point with this moving vehicle and fell, and I guess it caused some sort of injury to her. So then she reports to the hospital as being raped and having to jump out of a moving vehicle. But I believe that we don't have that in discovery, and I believe in good faith there's issues with that allegation. Now, we do find out later, and it may not be in this actual one. What happened was he picked her up outside and started driving. He threatened her with a gun, saying, saying, suck my dick or I'll kill you or I'll shoot you. And, she ran and jumped out the car. Okay. The second case, this arose because law enforcement did a swab. To be clear, that is DNA. They had a swab. They did a swab. They got DNA. They got into the bank, and it's a hit from an August 2015 allegation. This is when Chris was dipping into the pool, learning as a John how the system works and how he could later manipulate it. Okay? Now, I want you to understand, when there's DNA hit, that's 99.9 probable. Okay? That's guilt. That's an admission of guilt. According to the preliminary hearing, allegation is Shannon. Shannon, also a prostitute. Again, minimizing the person as a human. Miss Shannon Smith also engaged in sex with Gunsby in exchange for money, and she was not paid as agreed. So she decided to handle this in a matter as she falsely reported rape against Mr. Gunsby. So, again, consent with a prostitute is based on payment. Okay. Now, the fact is that it becomes kind of a gray area because they're both illegal situations. So, is Gunsby going to go to jail for paying a prostitute with fake money? Well, let's see, because later they find a whole shitload of fake money, and it is my assumption that that is exactly what he planned to do with the fake money. He's not planning on bringing fake money into a place where he can get in trouble. He's giving it to people who are shady and don't have any pens or can't tell what the shit is, and usually it's dark. Okay. Now, the facts of the case, slightly different because Lauren Fish, she says he ran out of gas. I skip past that because this is just him kind of capping that, okay, he raped her, but she's a prostitute, so who cares? She now starts walking down the street. No evidence she called anybody. She starts walking down the street, and here comes Mr. Gunsby, the hero, according to the attorney. And he just happens to roll down his window, offer to take her to a gas station, but eventually, according to her, never took her to the gas station. They stopped at a business location. All right. Now, According to the evidence at the preliminary hearing, there was no weapon. Of course, later, there was a weapon. There was no threat of force. Later, there was threat of force, which is why she jumped. She said that, put the gun to his head, said SMD. Never held her down. Well, he tried to, but she escaped. No injuries to her body. She jumped out the car. She attempted to run because they both got out of their cars, according to preliminary hearing, according to his opinion of the preliminary hearing. She walked willingly to the back of the car to be sexually, and then she walks willingly to the back of the car to be sexually assaulted. That reframing is disgusting. I mean, again, I have no discovery, but but allegations presented at the preliminary hearing have obvious issues. Gunsby has been in custody for 169 days. No weapon was reported to be used in any of these incidents. False. They were. 2, 1 a knife, 1 a gun. And he had all kinds of ammo rolling all over that fucking van. As I suggested, he's entitled to a bond, matter of law, because it's been longer than 90 days, and the state and the case still hasn't been indicted, mainly because he's being pushed. Their attorney team keeps pushing it back. Even when they do, so he's fighting for a bond. They want to see a $50,000 bond, and that's fine. Give him an ankle monitor. Whatever. Just let him out. His family is here. He's a great dude. Okay, the court. This is important. So what do you say to the pessimist who might argue, gosh, it's a heck of a coincidence that Mr. Unbias was wrongfully accused by 2 different prostitutes of hurting them when he didn't pay them? His attorney says. I have 2 responses. First of all, he's presumed to be innocent at this stage, and we've presented in good faith some issues on the case, but this is not uncommon. Good faith is exactly what you didn't do. You presented them as prostitutes, belittling them and their humanity. It's not unheard of that prostitutes claiming rape when they're not paid for their services, so I would say that suggests a logical and acceptable as a proffer. Now, he is saying that prostitutes can't get raped. Okay? We know, again, consent, payment, no consent. Miss Romanowski, Your Honor, on July 21st, 2017, when Judge Ross heard this hearing, he heard from many of the witnesses the defense brought out, which at the time was the defendant's wife, as well as a coworker, a longtime friend. So all that was all part of the decision-making made by Judge Ross at the time. I should note the warrants have been taken out for 2015, and Judge Ross heard about that date since there was no evidence at the time of it. It was a later date that a CODIS, that's the DNA system, hit back and so on in July. Judge Ross heard about her case as well as another sexual assault, aside from the ones that we have warrant on, number 3. 3 girls. So, Your Honor, I'm going to object to any mention of this second or third supposed incident. And to be clear why, it occurred the day after the June 17th sexual assault, and the state has not even sworn out a warrant for that arrest, so there is no way they will believe that is true. They are just trying to use it to fit the narrative and have Mr. Gunsby denied bond. This is, again, one of his attorneys. If they believed it was true, they would either charge a case or it's unconscionable. They haven't charged a case, or there's a young lady who has been raped that they believe after all this time have not found time to charge him, or is a prostitute, which you're blaming for not coming forward, and you're blaming for coming forward. Okay, moving on. Thank you. Okay, so I suggest that the account for the purpose of the bond. They want a court. Now, the court replies, also crucial. Thank you, counsel. I'm going to overrule that objection. Go ahead, Ms. Romanowski. I don't want to go ahead with that objection. I found what you just said to be nonsense, is what the attorney said. And so, Romanowski, that's his, didn't even hear this. So, again, this is skipping over. Well, this is why she's trying to explain why she shouldn't have been overruled. But again, it's them minimizing Chris's crimes. Essentially, on that date, the victim in the case, Kiara, she is on Backpage. There was never a question of what she does. She had arrived, frankly, to a John. A John. A John is somebody who pays for sex, aka Chris Unbias. She got the number from a friend. A friend is another escort who has been using Chris Unbias for transportation from outreach to outreach. The police have had contact with that friend. She gave the police the phone number that was used to contact this defendant for a ride. Escorts work together. And on the way to John's house, this defendant sexually assaulted her. Now, John A is the person Chris Unbias is driving her and this escort to. John is also unbiased. However, Unbiased has moved up in the stage of the John to the point where he's driving the Johns while being a John, okay? And the way to John's house, this defendant sexually assaulted her. Again, he also can consider that he will demand some sort of sexual pleasures from these ladies for driving them as some sort of payment, or as, you've taken too long, this is what you need to do, etc. And often they're so burnt out and just so fucked up in general that they agree to it, okay? That's why he hunts these. And on the way to John's house, he assaulted her. What happened is he pulled over, started to pull up her dress, and pull her panties down. I believe this one was the gun, or was it? I get confused with the gun and the knife one. When she opened the passenger door to get out the vehicle, the defendant sped away. The victim in this case said that she was in fear because there was a gun in the vehicle. There we go. And that's why she ended up complying. But she did jump out of the vehicle when Unbiased refused to stop. And she did sustain the injuries to her shoulder, her back, and legs from the fall. Now, where do you drive somebody that you rape? Where can you possibly drop her off that will make you not have to pay, not have any kind of evidence out there? Murder. I think Chris was attempting and has murdered. Okay, so she's gotten all kinds of injuries, so she had to go to the hospital. The defendant, Unbiased, did have the victim's cell phone. And what she indicated was when she went to grab her cell phone, the defendant grabbed it and pulled it away from her. Now, why? Can't call the police. Can't ask for help. She immediately ran, contacted anybody who was available, and a neighbor who called the police right away. This is fear. And what's funny is they found this lady's shoe at the neighbor's house later. And since this case had been indicted, the sexual assault kit for her has come back to this defendant. 100% proof. Sex assault kit came back to Chris Unbiased. He raped her. What should be noticed is that based on this phone number that they had, they were unable to track the phone to this defendant. They were able to track the phone to Mr. Unbiased's residence in Rockdale County. And they did end up getting a search warrant in Rockdale County for Unbiased's residence. They found the phone the defendant was using to contact for these cab rides was hidden in a random closet. Side note, when you are working with escorts, you use a burner phone. Burner phones are known specifically to hide your identity. You often do not even pay for them with any kind of connecting stuff. It's for cash. The dumb thing is Chris is a fucking moron, and he doesn't realize that it's called the burner because you're supposed to burn it or completely destroy it when you're done. He is hiding the previous phones that he's used in a bag in the attic, okay? Now, not only does that admit guilt because he's hiding these burners, it shows that, for one, the first phone he stopped using because he committed a crime on that number. So he had to stop for a while, and that number is no longer safe to use as his goal as a